Hey, I'm Joe Cross. I'm a filmmaker. You may know my movie Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead. I also have written a number of books. I spend my days in Australia. I love life. I love talking to people. And I love learning.
Brave Talks is powered by Zencaster. I'm so excited to have you on Brave Talks today to dig into all of your transformation, not just physical transformation, but just life transformation, because I go through moments where it's like, oh gosh, if I could just be a little bit more compassionate to myself. And when I have friends that I want to send them something, not passive aggressively, but out of love, like ways to have more compassion for yourself. So I was like, man, Joe's the person to talk to about this because you've done it. I think you've done it. We're about to find out if you've done it. And
Yeah, I think discussing self-worth is it's like super important. It's I think the most underutilized tool is use of perspective. I think perspective is something that we don't use enough. While we're doing this podcast and we are chatting away for this, many people around the world will be walking out of their doctor's rooms having been told that they've got a terminal disease. Parents are walking out with their kids being told that they are incredibly sick and it's 50-50. So there's always someone in the world that's doing it tougher, doing it harder, that's in more strife, that's under more pressure, that is sadder, that is more hopeless than any of us are right now. And so I quite often utilize this power of perspective and encompassing all of humanity when I am faced with a challenge myself. And I remind myself just how fortunate I am. I remind myself where I am in the world, where I live, the people around me. Um, my mum has quite often said this to me a few times in my life. She said, Joe, you can't choose two things in life: the country you're born in and the parents you're born to. These are completely out of our hands. Some people draw really well, like they get lucky on those two. Some people get lucky on just one of the two, and others don't get lucky at all. Just having this sense of perspective, Emily, I think is so important when it comes to judging oneself and judging others.
absolutely. I have referenced the Book of Joy in several of my episodes. What you're saying about zooming out and, this wider lens of acknowledging that we're all suffering and that we can all achieve compassion for ourselves is so important. And I have a highlight in the book that I was going to read to you later in the episode, but I'll throw it out now because it's just so important. It says modern culture makes it hard for us to have compassion for ourselves. We spend so much of our lives climbing a pyramid of achievement where we're constantly being evaluated and judged. And often we're not found to be making the grade. And so basically, like, we're internalizing all of this, like, modern culture, go, 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 do, do, do. And it says that lack of self-compassion manifests in a harsh and judgmental relationship with ourselves. And what I found to be really interesting is that the psychologist Kristen Neff gives some ways to identify and express self-compassion. A lot of them, like, we know, like, they're kind of the things that in the well-being industry people talk about: meditation, yoga, move, exercise, breathe, lower your stress levels. But what I found to be really interesting and in line with what you're saying is that she says when you're feeling down and things get tough and you're feeling challenged, whether it's self-worth or you're suffering, we try to understand, instead of rejecting and having self-judgment, understand the feelings you're having with curiosity and acceptance. That can lead to more compassion, self-compassion, and self-worth. And I thought, gosh, it's so interesting. It's so true. When I came across from my journey with body image and body dysmorphia and, modeling at 16 different sizes, always came across my challenges, which were so minimal compared to, this wider lens. I always came across them with such harsh judgment and um, rejection of myself. And also, you can't have love for the world unless you love yourself. You can't truly have an outward expression of love.
Yeah, it's a very elegant way of saying it. The Joe way of saying it would be is that when the chips are down, let's use that as an opportunity as opposed to a negative. Let's try and flip that around. Realize that life is about great times, sad times, average times. We if we could chart our self worth, our levels of happiness, our levels of contentment, it's up and down. It's like a roller coaster, and that is being human. There are going to be times in your life, from the time that you're born, Emily, to the time that you're no longer here and you've gone on to wherever you believe you go to, or not. Up to you, your call. But during that period of time, just mathematically, there's going to be the lowest day and there's going to be the highest day. Let's hope that the lowest days are behind us, and let's hope there's not going to be any more of those low days, but there are going to be lower days. And so I quite often, after the initial news that gets me upset or sad, I quite often use this perspective to say, right, well, I know that after a sleep and some time, I am going to feel better. So, is there a way now that I can fast track and bring forward that feeling of security, of confidence, of knowledge in the future that it's going to get better? Is there a way I can bring that into the present? And utilizing that kind of brain power, of vision, of visualization. I don't know what the actual scientific or psychological word is, but utilizing that skill takes the sting out of, at least for me, it does, of the moment in the time when I'm feeling that way. It's like anything in our life. I mean, I'm 54 years of age, and 20 years ago, the Joe at 34 probably didn't have this ability that I have now. Certainly, the Joe at 24 had no idea what was going on. But as you travel through this journey of life, you you start to develop skills along the way, I think, that make it more efficient for your existence, and you become wiser and smarter if you put the effort in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for the listeners, I'm in Washington, D.C. right now. You're in,
Sydney, Australia.
and my day is coming to an end.
My day's just starting.
Your day's just starting.
It's 9:30 in the morning, and it's a beautiful day. It's fall here, so I'm sitting outside, just in the garden. Beautiful flowers all around me, and it's just a wonder of nature, and it never gets old. Even though I'm looking at the same trees that I have been for the last year, but just the wonder of it all really, it takes your breath away.
Yeah, you could get philosophical about it too. Are they really the same trees if they've been through the cycle of life over the last year?
Yeah, they're probably not the same trees, but ever since I had my journey to enlightenment, from being not healthy or being sick or being a chronic condition to no longer being sick, and that journey was based on a relationship with plants. I never viewed plants in the way that I view them now. I didn't make the connection of just how vital they are in the dance of life with us humans. You can look at it in the ways of, I mean, my house is built by wood. I live in a wooden house. So that was trees that grew, that enabled me to have shelter. I have a fireplace. So in wintertime, I burn wood to keep warm. Once again, I'm using a plant. Uh, at nighttime, here where I live up in the northern beaches of Sydney, beautiful trees, and they take in all the CO2 that I'm breathing out right now while I speak to you, and they transpire and give me O2 to breathe right now while I'm talking to you. So there's this dance of breath. Not to mention the food supply that they give us through their reds and purples and yellows and oranges and green colored nutrition of converting the sunlight and the nutrients in the soil and H2O into this energy that and information that's required for our cells to be able to operate. So, this relationship with plants, if you really stop and wonder at it, it's a beautiful world.
You're so phenomenal. Yeah, like, it pierces my heart. I like to get into philosophical poetry in a way is just, and just slowing things down for us and allowing myself and the listeners to absorb the fact that we're all experiencing this beautiful interrelatedness with nature and with each other.
We absolutely need to have this connection with others. And in fact, I've thought a lot about this in my life. Of what drives happiness, and how do you obtain it? How do you achieve it? How do you hold on to it? It's quite simple, but I really put it down to just being useful. And I find in my life, the more useful I am, the more I'm able to be of service, the far happier I am. When you're not wanted, when you're useless, it's kind of like your sadness, unhappiness. And so, the for anyone out there that's struggling with happiness, I think the question you got to ask yourself is, well, how useful am I? How useful am I to others? How useful am I to myself? Am I being useful to self? Useful to self is really important. It comes back to self worth. What sort of nourishment? How much love do I have? What how much love do I have for myself? What am I showing? Am I showing respect to myself? Am I putting in just basically refined carbohydrates and food that has no life in it, no love in it? Am I just putting that in? Because whatever you put into yourself, as Sadhguru says, and I believe him 100%, it becomes part of you. It actually becomes part of you. How much live food are we putting in? And that's an example of being useful to self. All of these things. So being useful is not just useful to others; it is useful to self. But I really have found that the more useful I am, the happier I am, and the more useless I am, that's when I get a bit sad. And doesn't happen often with me, but hey, I'm human, and it does happen.
I'm here for you when you feel useless. A message from our partner. Do you ever think about starting a podcast? I recommend using Zencaster as your recording platform. When you sign up for Zencaster, use the code Emily Nolan, one word with a capital E and a capital N, to get 14 days free and 40% off 3 months of Zencaster Pro. That works out to $12 a month for unlimited audio and video recording. I look forward to hearing what you have to share with the world, and I'm rooting for you. Let's get back to the show. It is interesting when you said, we're not islands. No man is an island. We are all born with these vulnerabilities and, insecurities and things that we're just not simply good at. And I believe that that's because we need each other. And, we need each other to be ourselves, to be useful and to find our own, and not to sound woo woo, but our own power, our own gifts to bring forward and feel useful and to feel like you're, for me, you're in service of God's children or God's people, and that you're serving the greater good, whether it's God or, you don't have to be religious to believe that you're in service of others. Yeah. So it's fascinating, to be able to see that it's like Ubuntu, right? Like my worth depends on your worth, depends on all of us. And when I say worth, I don't mean surface level. I mean, like, again, the gifts, the calling, the divine within me, requires that of you. And it's that widening of the lens and seeing the interdependence and relatedness of everything, and to say, like, gosh, we live these very fenced off lives. Everything is very sterile. I'm comfortable here. That very sterile environment has destroyed our self-worth, because we aren't connected as much as we're supposed to be as human beings, and don't feel comfortable being vulnerable in uncomfortable situations, which it shouldn't be uncomfortable inviting people over and knocking on someone's door.
So it's a really good question, and I've actually never thought about the question you've just asked then about where did it come from, but I like a challenge, and so I would give you my off the cuff thought as to why that happened. So I always like to, once again, we use this word perspective and we bring it back to, how old are you, Emily, and how old am I? Now, I said earlier I'm 54 years old, which basically means I've had 54 trips around the sun. Time is distance, really. It's like how far this Earth has traveled around the sun. And so the actual Earth has traveled around the sun for about 3.5 billion years, and Homo sapiens, or you know, Homo sapiens about 250,000 years, but humanoids that's 4 to 6 million years, depending on who you listen to. So there is, if you really want to know our age, I mean, depending on whether how you want to clarify it, I mean, just as a Homo sapien, we're a quarter of a billion years old. I mean, we're really old, okay? And we've been doing things a certain way for 10,000 generations, okay? And the way we've done those things and the way we've evolved to be who we are today, and our everything about us, from the way we see, from the way our knees work, the way our shoulder works, the way we deal with cold, the way we deal with heat, the fact that we perspire, the fact that we go to the bathroom, the way that we breathe is all based on an evolution of hundreds of thousands of years. The way our brain works is based on all of that. So, we are not used to having a single source of information tell us how to live our life. We are not used to this thing called the media, which concentrates a story, a focus on something that is absolutely irrelevant to my life. We are used to gathering information from other humans, other partners on the journey. And we gather that information and we use that experience ourselves. We are not told to experience something, we actually experience it. So if you go back, and what do I mean by this? We'll go back to the 60s and 70s when all these crimes were going on in cities against children. What was happening was parents were not letting their kids go out and play. They were stuck indoors because, oh, you don't know if the boogeyman's going to be out there getting your child. So what happened was all these kids stopped playing in the garden. They stopped interacting with the organisms in nature. They were all in concrete, in buildings, having no touch at all with human with the sort of plant world. These were in cities because they were told by the media. Now, that's a specific example, but it's just you extrapolate that out today to a single story can ignite the whole nation right now. A single story. Someone using a cell phone on somebody else can all of a sudden captivate United States and therefore the world, because that's what happens. Because whatever happens in America gets transcended to the rest of the world because of the power of the US media, not because it's more important than what's going on in Senegal or Ethiopia or what's going on in Papua New Guinea. They're all stories. They're all stories of life. But because the US has this megaphone of media, and some would say propaganda to the heightened level, we all around the whole world, see these stories, and they then have an impact on kids here in Australia are talking about something that happens in another part of the world that's irrelevant to their life. So I think that when you talk about why do people retreat, how did they go to these sterile environments? How did they stop trusting their neighbor? Why did they become recluse? My gut feel is that they saw on television, whether it's on the media in news, whether they saw it on TV shows, on movies, whether they saw the dangers that were out there and the highlight. When in actual fact, those dangers were nowhere near the level of what the threat was. The threat was not there. And I think, we all know that governments around the world use this fear for control. It's a huge factor. It's a big political power tool to use fear to manipulate, use fear to rule, and that's sad, but it's unfortunately a reality. So that would be my first shot, and at thinking as to why we've done that retreat. We're probably getting too much information from a single source, Em.
Yeah. I think a lot of us believe that it's dangerous to let somebody actually see us. Walk down the street and you encounter someone you've never met and you have an unguarded conversation with them. How often do we do that? And why don't we do that? Why do we guard ourselves and protect our hearts? And last month's newsletter that I wrote was about love and unconditional love, and that it's our responsibility as humans that when we are heartbroken, when we do come across challenges and adversity, that it's our duty to dust ourselves off and try again, to love again, because that's our duty and that's our set point as humans. And to give it a silly small example, I was getting my nails done for the first time in like a year the other day, and the gentleman that was doing my pedicure had the tattoo family on his arm, and I was like, do you have children? And I started asking questions. He was from Vietnam. I wanted to know what it was like, where he's growing up. And we walked out, and I was with my mom, and she was like, geez, you really gave that guy a full-on interview. And I was like, well, I was just trying to see him. And how infrequently do we just plug our ear pods in and read a book or just get on our phone and disengage? Sometimes we need that, right? Sometimes we just need some alone time and peace, but compassion has 3 degrees of separation. So, by hearing someone and asking questions and trying to connect with someone else, like, what is the ripple effect of that, and how does that affect his self-worth, his self-compassion? And geez, somebody saw me and heard me, and I don't know who she was. I'm just some normal ass woman.
No, I think what you're talking about is absolutely really important. And, you know, you may not be aware of it, but you would have made that gentleman's day. When people are in those sorts of jobs and roles where they are being of service, a lot of people treat them with disrespect for whatever reason, and how they get this into their head, I'm not sure, that they are somehow better than that person. And I think that that level of connection with others and encompassing them into the conversation and treating them with respect and asking questions, being curious, makes their day, because it elevates them. When I was making my movies, um, the fun part about my movies was actually going out on the street with the camera and just stop. And sometimes the conversation would be for 1 minute, Emily, and sometimes it was an hour and a half. Americans love a chat, and you might be surprised at how open people are. And, like my grandmother said to me, and I've said this before, you may have heard me say this, Emily. My grandmother said to me, said, Joe, you got 2 ears and one mouth. You should listen twice as much as you talk.
Absolutely. This is just a note when my husband is listening to this podcast that Joe endorses me talking to everyone who I normally talk to randomly walking down the street, because he's always like, come on, we're running late. But this is a shared human experience, and I'm sucking the marrow out of the bones, honey. And my son Oliver has got the same quality. So when people walk by, he's like, hello, how are you? My name's Oliver.
No, it's a great. You don't want to lose that. Oliver doesn't want to lose that, and I think that we are. You talked about before the true self, where you actually really expose your own self, and really, we have an expression in Australia like go home and have a good hard look at yourself. you know, but that takes courage, and that takes a certain time. We need to check on ourselves, and we need to take notice of those that we care about. I don't think we need to take notice of the world. I'm not a big one for worrying what the world says about me, but I am someone I'll listen to what my family, my parents, and my best friends say about me. So I'll take those words. Very rare is it done out of any reason other than to be helpful. But I'll take those on the chin and not brush them off, but really listen to them and take stock, because we're all on this journey, and sometimes we get ahead of ourselves and we get a little bit too excited, maybe a little bit too much hot air, and that happens. And we need to let it out. And we need our friends to do that and remind us and keep us in check. As soon as you think you're there, Emily, that's when you're not there.
That's beautiful. I recently climbed up the tallest tree in my jungle and took a good hard look at myself and my life. I got off social media for 7 months. There's just so much with that for me. In a way, I was reborn after having Oliver. I'm a new woman. I can't distill what I have learned unless I climb the tall tree, take a breather, get some perspective, read a ton, have a bunch of conversations like we're having now. What happened is 7 months go by, I'm feeling so empowered, and I'm like, "You know what? It's time to take my strong message back into the public realm." People were emailing me saying, "I miss you. How can I connect with you? Like, is there anyone doing the same type of work or sharing the same message you have?" And so I was like referring people to other people that were doing similar things. And in the body positive world, where my message has kind of become more philosophical, more spiritual, more about the inner relativity of humanity. And of course, the surface level body image, but for me that was always the big picture. But now I see that for me the body image is just a symptom of all the other stuff that's going on. And so getting perspective allowed me to come back stronger. And then I had another human moment where, I'm scrolling through feeds again and my Instagram timer pops up. I've been on for more than 20 minutes in a day. And I'm like, whatever. Like, I'm going to keep going. Oh, I'm like devouring all this stuff. And I'm like, how could somebody be posting this video? This is ridiculous. What is this TikTok video? What is Lizzo doing on her birthday? This is insane. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I get so wired down this blue light rabbit hole of stupid shit everyone else is doing. And then I compare myself, even though I know I'm not comparing myself, but subconsciously I am comparing myself that, this person, it has 8 gajillion likes and she's got a really successful podcast and she had a memoir that just came out. And I need to have my book done now. And this person over here, there's just so much noise in the modern world that is so drowning. It just dilutes us as individuals if it's used improperly, and it's a drug, right? So it is always used improperly unless you're like hire someone to do it for you.
I think the way that I'm interpreting what you're describing is that you took your break and you came back and you were super efficient. Because what we want is we want efficiency. We thrive on efficiency. When you have a message and you can pop that message out and it's reverberating, that's efficient. So when you went down that rabbit hole, all of a sudden your efficiency went out the window. So you went from being efficient to inefficient. And it's that simple shift. So, yeah, have the 20 minutes, but do it from a perspective of saying, all right, I'm going to go and see, and I'm going to be inspired. I'm going to go and like set goals. This person's got this podcast. They're doing that. Wow, that'd be wonderful. I don't need to do it now, but eventually that'd be a great goal. Okay, what's Lizzo doing on her birthday? Well, that's not for me. I wouldn't eat the shrimp. But if you do it from a perspective where you are conscious of what you're doing as opposed to being reactive, just allowing it to hit you without having your safeguard up. I think that's the inefficiency part, right? So, I'm reminded by and I don't know if it's in the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra, because I haven't read that book for like 25 years, but Maybe I'm borrowing a little bit of the analogy from that, and maybe I'm not. Maybe it was somewhere else that I read it. But so think about all of us, everyone listening has this body of water inside ourselves. And you can picture it in your brain, that's fine. But the water is either really still, like a beautiful lake with the snow capped mountains in the background, and it's like a mirror. That if you threw a pebble into one of those lakes, the ripple will go across the whole lake. If and even if it's like 100 square miles, that ripple will go across the whole lake and it'll fill every part of that body of water. So it's a little idea, but it goes into a calm body of water, reverberates everywhere. If you think about that movie, George Clooney, The Perfect Storm, when they went up that bloody, it's just incredible wave, and you think about that kind of just disastrous conditions at sea that you get, um, and you throw the island of Manhattan in, no reverberation, no nothing. It's like so crazy and wild that nothing is going to perpetrate that body of water. And a lot of us run around inside our own bodies of water with these crazy cyclone, hurricane waves going on, where no matter what we do, every idea, everything we throw in there just gets lost instantaneously on the thought. So if you can calm the waters, climb that tall tree, whatever it is, do the meditation, do the prayer, have some time out from friends, turn off social media, turn off the television, find your way to calm your water. Then you'll be shocked at when you put the smallest idea in, how much power, and then we use this word again, efficiency, you will find. And, it sounds like what I'm talking about is simple, and that's because it is, because it actually is simple. If you can just calm it down, maybe that's the hard part for a lot of people, but actually then going out with an intention to do something when the waters are calm, you're going to be able to achieve it. You're going to be able to actually stick to it. A lot of people come to me when they're feeling pretty down, feeling like they've lost hope. And what I end up doing is I sort of challenge them to send an email out to 4 or 5 of their people in their life that mean the most to them and ask them to write down 2 or 3 qualities in single words or just 2 words that they see in them. Like get someone else's perspective about qualities they see in them. And then when they all come in, get those little post-it notes and write each one on its own individual post-it note. And then stick it on your bathroom mirror. So that when you wake up in the morning every day, you're going to have 15 post-it notes there with, honesty, funny, heart of gold, integrity. Maybe you get punctual. I mean, who knows what they're going to say about you, you know? But you're going to get these qualities that you can start your day by reading about what the people who matter most in your life think about you. This is a great way to start your day rather than coming out in the birthday suit and have that little voice inside start nitpicking away about how the stomach's too big and that gray hairs are there and the lines on the face and the chest is sagging or the fat under the arms is too much, all this little inner voice stuff. We give voice to that negative voice way too much. We give too much consideration to that voice. And you can only really stamp out that voice by, you need to practice it. You can't just say, oh, tomorrow I'm not going to do it. You have to come up with ways to drown it out. So having these post-it notes on the mirror or on the bathroom wall or wherever you want to have them, where you see them first thing in the morning, that's a great way of reinforcing that positive voice in you and letting that voice come out.
Absolutely. I think that, by reaching out to those 3 people, that is so powerful. I was working with a PR agency for somebody I was interviewing on the show. Something happened, we had to reschedule, and, I was like, "It's the PR person, like, I don't need to have a relationship with them, like, I was just trying to schedule this interview with this guy." But I knew she was getting her vaccine, her second one, and I'd just gotten my second one. And I went through a tailspin of like, I had a cold for a week and a half. I was sick for 2 days and I felt like crap. And, when I came out of it, I knew that she had just gotten her second vaccine. And so I wrote her. I just said, "Hey, how are you doing? And like, thinking of you, I hope you're well." And she was like, "Wow, thanks for thinking of me." And then sent this long email about, whatever we were talking about. But just that human connection.
But what you've done there with her is you've made her day better, so that if she goes home to her family and her kids, then perhaps she's actually going to be nicer to them. So this butterfly effect, this knock-on effect, is real. It's real.
Absolutely. You ready for some rapid fire?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
Something most people don't know about you.
I'm scared of sharks. I'm scared of open water.
Fair. Can you describe self-worth in 3 words?
Efficiency, perspective, love.
What's on your nightstand?
My iPhone charger, a lamp, and my reading glasses. As soon as these iPhones and all these things came out, I got to the point where I needed glasses to read. So annoying.
Last book you read and loved?
The last book read and loved was Rock Me on the Water. It's the story of Los Angeles in 1974. I have a curious mind, and I do believe history repeats itself. And to adopt what was going on then to now, I think is very relevant.
Actor you'd choose to play your role in a movie on your life?
Okay, well, John Candy is dead, so we can't have John Candy. I'd go with Will Ferrell.
Fill in the blank. Life is.
I'm going to say life is a gift. Yeah.
Absolutely a gift. Okay, if you could have any other job in the world, but not what you're doing now, what would you do?
You know what I think I would like to do is be the host of a morning TV show. Yeah.
Favorite place you've ever traveled?
I haven't done Africa. I think I'd love that, but I love Greece. It sort of takes me back, 2,000 years. And, as you can tell already, I like to think about history, about where we've been as humans. And, I'm seeing islands as they were. I love Greece. I love the blue water. I love the arid land. I love the people. I love the food. I love the weather.
Mm-hmm. What do you want your legacy to be?
I think that as long as people think I gave them my best shot, that's all that matters. Did my best, went hard, no stone unturned, tried my hardest.
Oh, well, sending you so much love and just embracing you virtually. I wish I could give you a big hug.
Hey, Emily, it's been an absolute pleasure and a delight. And I feel like we've climbed a couple of tall trees while we've been speaking. And it's always good because I personally get a lot out of these things because, as I've said many times, you learn a lot about yourself when you talk and when you teach, and you learn more, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much. Brave Talks is sponsored by Taja Collection Custom Candles. You can find the candle on tajacollection.com. That's TAJA collection.com. And you can search for Be Pretty Brave. Brave Talks is produced by Madeleine Inskeep. Video production is by Wallace Cruz. The music is produced by my dear friend Murray Hidary with Mind Travel. A heartfelt thanks to these 3 who support Brave Talks with their incredible talent and gifts. If you'd like to receive my monthly thoughts and a recap of this month's Brave Talks, head on over to emilynolan.com and click subscribe. Brave Talks is powered by Zencastr. Thanks for listening.